So let's go ahead and learn FreeCAD for 3D printing the way that I wish I learned about it right at the beginning. What's up? I'm Jonathan and welcome to Maker Tales, where I'm sharing my maker journey to help you go further in yours. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell icon to never miss an opportunity to keep making. This video is sponsored by Thangs. So this video is all about basically the fundamental beginning of FreeCAD, all the settings I wish I knew about, and all the little bits and bobs that nobody really tells me till you're way further down the line. So we're going to cover the basics really solidly here, and through the next series of just a few videos, we're going to do a crash course to get to the point that we create this 3D printed box with a nice little lid. The key things that we're going to be covering here are things such as direct design, parametric design, and what exactly all that means. And then going from there, we're going to be going and working both with Blender and FreeCAD to create some incredible models. Let's start this all off on how to download FreeCAD itself. So head over to freecadweb.org, then go over to downloads, and then here you're going to see a whole bunch of different types you can go. Just go for one, hit the installer, have that download, and just a quick note here, things that are quite interesting here on this website is the community tab, especially their forum, and of course the wiki. The wiki has a lot in here, but just be aware that it can be quite overwhelming as there's a lot of stuff that's still in dev and stuff. But don't worry, this entire course we were going to cover absolutely everything that you need to know to get started with FreeCAD for 3D print design. So once you get this downloaded, click it, install it, and I'll see you in your first time opening it up. And here we are with the first run of FreeCAD. Now be aware that I am using FreeCAD 0.19. Might be upgraded by now, you might be on the same one, but just so you know, this is a 4K screen. It might look a little bit different for yours depending on the resolution of your screen and so on and so forth. So first things first, yes, there is a lot here and it's very overwhelming and it seems complete jargon most of this, but don't worry, we're going to cut this right the way down. From here, I want to pretty much ignore everything apart from some preferences that I really feel like we need to go ahead and deal with. So go over to Edit, go over to Preferences, and first we're going to start all the way at units because I know for those of you that deal with inches, you're dying to get into that. So here it is. Standard, you can go millimeters, inches, whatever you want to use, you go for it. I'm going to stick with millimeters for myself. So let's go back to general here. And what I'm wanting to change here is first, the size of my toolbar icon. I want to go extra large. You might want to go large and so on and so forth, but hit apply and you'll see those changes. Okay, from there, this start menu. Now this is going to be a little bit weird because we haven't covered it all. Just change this to part design. This in the background is the start one. We want part design and this is called a workbench. And don't worry, we're going to go over that real soon, but just go ahead and change that there. From here, we're going to go over to display, but first make sure you hit apply so everything saves. Go to display, and then we're going to go over to this part here where it says marker size. I'm going to make this as big as I want. So I'm going to go for as big as possible so you guys can really see what's going on. I'm also going to go ahead and change my pick radius from 5 to 9. As I find that works best for me on a 4K monitor. And I'm also going to change my anti-aliasing. I would suggest go for 4, if not 8, it's up to you. But you're going to see now a nice little pop-up is going to come up that we're going to have to restart FreeCAD once we're done with all our changes. So we'll do that once all the preference changes are done. So hit OK, hit apply, and now let's go over and talk about navigation. So click on this navigation, and here's a little bit of a controversial one. I am not going to be teaching you CAD movement. There's a good reason for this because I go ahead and use Blender because I find Blender with FreeCAD put together is a killer combo for 3D print design. So I'm going to be teaching Blender navigation within the 3D space here, but if you want CAD, I'm sure I'll make a video and it'll be linked down in the description. So with that now put in place, hit apply, and that's all we need to do. A quick little mention of two things though. Here in colors, this is the background color if you ever want to change that gradient. Plus, I'm sure some of you have gone through a whole bunch of videos of FreeCAD, and right here where it says style sheets, this is how people get those crazy, weird, different colors going on. Now, I personally don't really feel great about all these. I very much like my own style, but we're going to do that much later on. So I'm going to go with no style at all, keep things as simple, as basic as possible. So with that done, hit apply, close that. We're now going to close FreeCAD and open it back up, and then I'm going to see you when you open it back up. Now, a quick message from today's sponsor, Thangs. Now, hold on, before you skip, trust me, there's something I want you to check out in here. Thangs is the fastest growing 3D model community with close to 3 million free models to download. One of my favorite things of Thangs is their no app needed free augmented reality feature, where you can literally check out 3D models in the real world with pretty much just one click on your phone. So be sure to give it a go with the example file linked down in the description to see what the end result of this FreeCAD crash course is going to look like in front of you. So when you start up FreeCAD, it's going to look completely different. In fact, you might even go, hey Jonathan, what's going on? You've just broken my FreeCAD. Everything's grayed out. I'm in this weird space. What's going on? Don't worry, this is the right place to be. So first, let's go ahead and talk about where exactly we are. We're now in something called the Part Design Workbench, and it's right up here. Now, I'm just going to zoom in to make life a little bit easier for all of you. So you can see all of these here, these are all workbenches. And the way that FreeCAD works is that each one of these workbenches has a whole set of tools and features and so on and so forth for that specific task. So this is the part design one. The one that we started in was the start one. So I'm just going to zoom back out here. We hit start and lo and behold, we're back at the start one. So to go to the part design one, you can click here and go over to part design. Now, I just wanted to show you that in case you got lost and didn't quite understand what was going on. That's the main way that FreeCAD works. And you can even install more of these later down the line. We're going to really be sort of concentrating on the draft, mesh, part design, part, and the spreadsheet and sketcher, and maybe a couple of others, but for now, that's the main ones that you need to know. From this point, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Right this minute, I want you to understand how FreeCAD is working, because right this minute it's telling you, hey, create a new file. Well, surely a file has already been created. Not quite. You can see down here we have this little tab. This says it's the start page. Technically, this should be a file. So if we close this, the reason why everything is grayed out is because a file has not been created. Now, let's go ahead and create a file. So up here on the top left-hand side, you will see create a new empty document. You click this, and all of a sudden, everything is active because you now have a file active. So this is the unnamed file, of course, because we haven't saved this. So let's go ahead and save this. But before we do that, I just want to go over to this thing called the combo view. Go over to model here, and you'll see here on applications, it says unnamed, because this here is the file itself, because you can actually have lots of files open. That's one of the weird things of FreeCAD. Technically, you can have FreeCAD open without actually having any file open. Anyway, let's go ahead and save this by going File, Save As, or Control S. Now I'm going to call this one Getting Started, and once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and hit Save. Okay, now that we've saved that, you can see up here, this unnamed is now turned into Getting Started. So you can see here that it says model. It isn't really your model. It's so much more than your model. It's going to be your timeline. It's going to be your sort of hierarchy in the way of how you organize things. This is a very important space. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the UI a little bit. Fundamentally, the UI is however you want it to be. It's one of these great things that FreeCAD can really work for anyone in the way that they want it to be, and you can just go ahead, drag and drop these to wherever you want to snap them to and so forth. But be careful, you can't close this and then be like, oh no, he just told me that was really important. How do I get that back? Well, you go over to View here, you'll see you have your panels, and right here you have your combo view. Now to snap that back in, just go over to the side. It should, with a bit of encouragement, snap back in. There you go. So that's how you go about and do that. Something else I want to draw your attention to though, if you go over to the view there, you see you have Workbench and Toolbars. So let's quickly go over the workbenches. So now you understand there's different workbenches. You can see here there's another menu to go through them all, but you see there's also shortcuts. So you have W1, W2, W3, and so on and so forth. Now, I personally haven't really got to grips with using these shortcuts, but it's good to know that there are shortcuts there. All right, Now let's talk about the toolbars. Now you can see up here there's a lot of tools. Let's go ahead and zoom in quickly. So just want to show you, see these dots here along the side of those tools? Those dots are where you can drag your toolbars and set this up to how you want it to look. So you can see we can drag this along like that, but look, there's more tools here, there's not enough space. What do? Don't worry about it. Just drag it down and it will create you a new toolbar. That's one of the brilliant things that I really like about FreeCAD. So FreeCAD can look completely different for different people. So go ahead, change this up to something that you like the look of. I'm going to go for something along those lines there. I want this one as well. Just bring that over there and I'm happy with that. Okay, so with that done, I'm just going to do a quick save. So Control S, just to make sure that that gets saved into place. Now, one last mention is over here in the view and the toolbar, you can turn things on and off from here. So as you can see, just turned off my macro, you can turn that back on. There's a lot of functionality here that you can basically decide exactly what you want it to do. Don't worry if you don't have a clue what they do, that's totally fine. We're going to be doing that all later on. Okay, that's enough talking, Jonathan. I want to make something. Come on, let's get started. Hold your horses. There's so much to this that you really need to make sure you set this up correctly. If not, you're going to be tripping over yourself later on down the line. Now, many videos at this point go, yeah, let's go ahead, let's just make a body, boom, then we'll start making things. That's not really the best workflow to go with. The workflow that you want to go with is you have a file. Now, in this file, you want to create a part. So over here, this one here is you create a new part. Now within that part, you can have lots of different things in a part, but you want a body in that part. Now, considering that you have that, now you can go ahead and explore it a little bit deeper. Now, one thing that I want to show off right away is if we go to this little drop down, you will see that we've got something called an origin. Don't worry, the origins will become more clear with time, but you can see that we can't see anything in this 3D view. Well, let's actually see this origin. To show things and hide things, press the space bar and you'll see that you'll see this. Now this here is your planes of reference. So obviously you've got your plane of XZ here, your XY, then all your axes as well. So with that done, let's go ahead and let's talk about navigation. So to navigate, we're going to be using the whole idea of Blender navigation. So first of all, let's go ahead and rotate this. The middle mouse button is your friend for rotating here. You can go ahead and use the CAD style movement, which doesn't need a middle mouse button, and that will be linked down in the description. So that's the middle mouse button. It's a little bit weird because you will see that depending where you click, is depending how it's going to rotate. And I don't really feel super comfortable with that, but it's something that we've just got to deal with for now. All right, to pan around, hold down Shift and the middle mouse button, and that will let you pan around. To zoom in and out, you can use the scroll wheel in and out, or you can hold down Control, hold down the middle mouse button, and that lets you sort of dolly or zoom in and out. Okay, with those now covered, let's talk about this little gizmo right here. So if I zoom in, you can see this is another way of moving around. So this is incremental steps of going from side to side. You've also got incremental steps of rotating, and this is different types of view perspectives. All right, with that done, let's talk about the main way on how I go ahead and do 3D navigation. I actually use these buttons which give you the isometric view, front view, top view, side view, back view, bottom view, and left view. All of these are the main way that I go ahead and use FreeCAD, because I go to this isometric view, then I just move out a little bit and that lets me see what's going on. Now let's say you get yourself completely lost and you have no idea where you are. How do you get yourself back to that point? Well, this one right here is your friend. So fit the whole content on the screen, you click that and it brings you right there. The other way of doing that is get yourself lost and go ahead, go VF, and that brings you to the center as well. Now let's go ahead and talk about selection very quickly here in part design. Pretty much left click is select, hold down Control, and that does multiple select. That's pretty much it. You can also go ahead and do double clicks on things. as in, if it's already selected, select it again, it will select more of it. It's a little bit strange, it's also a little bit different on 3D geometry, but that's something that I wanted to show you. So with that done, now let's talk about the idea behind CAD style design. So now take a seat back and let's have a little chat. When you first think of CAD style design, you probably think of technical drawings, and that's for a good reason, because everything is driven by numbers when it comes to computer aided design. So let's take a look at one of these technical drawings. So we have one here. Now, what exactly do these technical drawings do? Well, what they're basically doing is defining the relationships of different features within a 3D object in a 2D space. Okay, with that knowledge place, then what exactly do the numbers do? Well, they're constraining where said features are. So constraining means we're very much telling it where it is and what it is and how it should be. So for instance, this hole here we know needs to be 16 whatnots there, and it needs to be 37 whatnots over here, but there's nothing defining the diameter of it unless you realize that these are all the same one, and there you have a diameter of 6 whatnots. All right. Now we understand the idea of the sort of the technical drawing and what the numbers do. Now I just want to quickly talk about the way that you can do CAD modeling. Now CAD modeling can be done in two ways. One is you go ahead and do something called direct modeling. So direct modeling is where you go ahead, you use this technical drawing, you say, okay, well this has a base length of 45 and you type in a dimension of 45 there. And this is width is 32. That is 32. Fantastic. And let's see, then you go ahead and create some other thing and you realize that this is, where's the thickness here of this thing? Oh, it's not fully defined. But then you realize the thickness of something and go from there. That is called direct modeling, where every single number is put in individually. And then if you ever wanted to change that number, you have to go back to that number and change that. But for instance, maybe you wanted to change the diameter of this one here. You changed this one, but now you also have to change the other ones. That is direct modeling. The next one is called parametric modeling. And this is the real powerhouse tool when it comes to computer-aided design. Basically, you still use numbers, except you link them together. So you create something called a variable. So we're going to say that this 6 is a variable, and we're going to call it small holes. So these small holes are set to 6, and we're going to use the variable small holes to say, hey, when we say what diameter you are a small hole diameter, you are a small hole diameter, and you are a small hole diameter. That means that if we ever go ahead and change the idea of what the variable of that small hole is from 6 to 3, all of these will change at the same time. That there is parametric modeling. And of course, you go ahead and link this up with this other hole up here, as well as with the thickness. And that fundamentally is parametric modeling, where you link up features together so that one dimension controls many different features on a model. Okay, now that we understand that, let's go ahead and start our own very simple sketch. So having understand technical drawings, we understand that we need to go ahead and create our own technical drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and hide the origin just because this is sort of the normal way that it goes about. So this is hidden fundamentally, and we'd have to now create a sketch. So what you do is you create a sketch using this button right here. You click it, and now it's going to say, hey, okay, you want to create a sketch. What plane do you want to use it on? So I'm going to go ahead and say the XY, which is top down, and hit OK. As you can see, everything's gone ahead and changed. There's a whole bunch of new tools. We are now in something called the Sketcher Workbench. This is a place that they're going to be spending a lot of time in. So first, I'm going to go ahead and change this up a little bit. This toolbar, I'm going to move this up there. That's already a lot better for me. I might actually go ahead and move these down here just to make them a little bit more accessible to me. Fantastic. And there's also a couple of preference changes to do before we go and dive into this. So let's go into the edit preferences. You're going to see that we now have this sketcher preference right here. So I'm going to click in here. I'm going to go ahead and hit show grid in case you, like me, don't have a grid in the background. I'm going to go ahead and hit apply, and you'll see that a grid shows up. Next up, I'm going to go over to display, and I'm going to change my font size to something pretty big so you can see what's going on. But also, mainly, I have a 4K screen here, so it's pretty crazy. I'm just going to go ahead and change this to 2. These here, you might have to go ahead and play around with to find the best one for your resolution. I'm going to hit apply on that too. And then just a quick note that right here on colors, this controls all the colors, and in the future, I'll be doing a video where I show you how I like to set this up for my own personal taste, and that will be coming. It will be linked down in the description once it is out, so make sure you subscribe to hear about it. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's hit OK, and now we're in this Sketcher workspace. First things first, you can see that we have these lines and this red dot. This red dot is the center of the origin, and as you can imagine, these are different axes that are on this plane. Now, be careful, because this plane is not sort of locked from a top-down view. You can easily rotate this plane and then be lost within it. So how do we go ahead and recenter this up so we know that we're on the right side and all the rest? Well, there's a lovely little button right here. So click this button and it will bring you back to the center of the plane. Okay, so I'm not going to be going into too much detail about everything that we're doing here. That's going to be very much the next video, but we are going to very simply cover some things. So these here are lines, and these here are constraints and dimensions. We're going to keep things very simple. We're just going to make a little cube. So we're going to click this here, which creates a rectangle, and we're going to say, hey, look, right here on the center, that's where we want it to start. I'm going to zoom in quickly just so you see. You can see we have this little crosshair that comes up when we go up to that. That is telling us that this is coincident to that point. We are basically going to go ahead. If I just go ahead and now just draw something out, you will see that if I were to move this, I can move it anywhere I want. And technically, FreeCAD has no idea where this is in the 3D space. We need to give it an origin, sort of a constraint from the origin so it knows where this sketch is. So I'm just going to go ahead and just drag and select and delete. Okay, so with that covered, let's go ahead. Let's make that once again. So I'm going to click this. I'm left clicking while it has that little crosshair. Then I'm going to go ahead and pull this out and left click once again. So that's just created this. What's just come up though? We have these lines, these dots, and these red lines. These red lines are constraints. And what type of constraints are they? Well, let's go over here. You can just let yourself hover over. This is a horizontal constraint, and this is a vertical constraint. So this means that this line cannot change to an angled view. An angled orientation. So if I right click to cancel what I have on right this minute, you can see I can click on this dot and I can try and move it around, but I can't get it to a different orientation. However, if I were to select the constraint and hit delete to delete it, all of a sudden things break up and go a little bit weird. So I would have to select these two and say, hey, both of you need to stay together. And now you can see that we are constrained in this weird way. So I want this to be horizontal once again. So I'm going to click it and I want to click that button, or I can hit H to make it horizontal. Right, that's pretty much as deep as I want to go. Now let's just go ahead and just give this a dimension. So I'm going to select this edge here, and you can see right here we have some very simple dimension tools. This is vertical, horizontal. I'm going to do a vertical dimension here. We're going to type it in, and I'm going to just type in 30, hit OK. Brilliant. You can see it's gone ahead and put that in. I'm going to do it once again. Click this edge here, or you can also click the 2 points. And instead of doing the buttons up here, there are shortcuts to these. This is Shift H. This is Shift V. Shift H for horizontal. So we're going to go again. Shift H for horizontal. Set this to 30 and hit OK. Did you notice what just happened? Our lines went green. Isn't that strange? Let's select this dimension and delete it once again. Now they're white. What's going on? Well, take a look here on the left-hand side. It says under constrained sketch, 1 degree of freedom. That's because this 1 degree of freedom can still be moved about. So if we go here and we constrain this and we set this to 30, we have now fully defined or fully constrained the sketch. So it knows exactly where it is and everything that drives it. All right, that's as deep as we're going to go. So hit close here, and we're now back in our part design workbench. So now that we have our first sketch done, let's go ahead and just do a quick save with a Control S. And with that saved, let's go ahead and take a look at what's happening here on the left-hand side. You can see under our body, we have a sketch. Let's go ahead and do something with it. Select this sketch, and you can see that we have this thing called tasks, and there's a whole bunch of tasks here. You can see they're all up here as well. So it's up to you how you want to go ahead and use it. I usually use the ones up here. What we're going to do is something called a pad. You can also think of a pad as an extrusion, which is basically make 3D or make it thick. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pad this sketch. So let's left click, and all of a sudden we have this. Let's go ahead, let's set this to a nice 30. As you can see, we are direct modeling here. Nothing is sort of magically controlling this. These are numbers that we are putting in. So with that done, we're going to go ahead and click OK. So what exactly has just happened? Our sketches disappeared and we now have this 3D object here. And what? Don't worry, this is simple. This is why I'm saying this thing on the left-hand side is so important to us, because this sort of defines exactly what's happening here. Let me zoom in a little bit more. So we have our file that has a part in it that has a body. Inside of this body, there has been a pad, and the pad is referencing a sketch. So if we ever wanted to go ahead and change this shape, we can double click the sketch, which will take us into it, double click one of these and begin to edit it. Then you can click OK, go back, and it would go ahead and do the change. Now you can see it's grayed out. You can also press space, as we know, to show it, and you can see the sketch is underneath as that green line. Now there is one little change that I'm wanting to do just now so that we don't have to do it later on. Hold on, I'm just going to go isometric, pull it over there, then rotate it a little bit. I'm going to hit space here, and we're going to go to edit our preferences, and I'm going to go ahead and change some of the things inside of part design. Now, many people like to turn all these on. I probably will, but that will be later on in future videos. Now, shape view, I like to have this at 6, as it just gives you more information visually of your 3D object. And shape appearance, I like to crank this pretty high up because of my screen, mainly. So I'm going to go with a 4 and an 8, I think. Yeah, let's go with that. I'm going to hit apply, hit OK. You can see that's gone ahead and made my lines just a little bit thicker, as well as the vertices there. Okay, so with that now done, let's go ahead and put a hole into this. So to add a hole, we very much go around the same procedure. We need to create a sketch to tell it where to go and do all that. Remember that we're always working with 2D to 3D. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to select where we want this hole to go. So I'm going to say I want it on this top face. Okay, with this top face now selected, we're going to go ahead and create a sketch. Now, because this top face is selected, it's going to say, oh, you want to create a sketch on this face. So right here, we're going to go ahead and create a sketch. Automatically, it takes us in, but now we can't really reference where exactly anything is. So I'm going to just go ahead and hit close, but the sketch is still there. Now, when we reopen the sketch, you will see the model in there. Now we're going to go ahead and define this one a little bit differently because we're going to add a little round hole in it. So we're going to go with this one of create a circle. We're just going to left click, drag it out, left click again. Okay, right click to cancel that operation. As you can see, we have plenty of degrees of freedom right this minute, and you can see it over here as well. So 3 degrees of freedom. So what are the 3 degrees here? Well, we've got horizontally, vertically, and we also have the radius of this. Okay, so let's go ahead and define the radius first. So right here, you have a constraint for an arc circle. Gonna go ahead, click that, click on this, and then it says, what radius do you want this? Let's set this to a radius of 10. Let's see if that will be too big. No, that's pretty fine. So we've got a radius of 10. Right click to cancel that operation. You can left click and move this wherever you want it to go. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's set the horizontal dimension. So we select the origin point, and then we're going to left click there. We don't have to hold down anything. And now we can either use the button or Shift H. All right, now let's go ahead. We're not going to go and use any magic method right this minute. We're just going to do this manually. So let's go with 15 because we're direct modeling right now. Let's just move this here so it's pretty obvious. Now go ahead, give it a try. You know what we're doing here. We're going to select these two. What would it be? We're going vertical, Shift V. So we're going to go ahead, hit 15, and as you can see, it's turned green, which means it is now fully constrained. So now we can go ahead and hit close. Now another way of doing this is you can hit the escape key, and this will also take you into the part design and escape you out of the sketcher view. Now keep in mind when you do the escape key, it does close down the model and open up the task. I like to have this open instead, so that's how I like to work. All right, now there's many different ways of going ahead and putting this hole through. You might think, oh look, there's a thing that looks like a hole, let's create that. That's not the right way to go about it. This is a different type of hole operation. The hole operation that we're trying to do is something called a pocket operation. So click this and you'll see that we now have a pocket placed. Now we can of course influence this here and say how deep we want it to go, but instead of that, let's just say go all the way through. So through all. This means that if there was some other object on the other side, it would go through that as well. If you want you to go up to face, and if you were to go up to face, you will see that the hole disappears, but that's because it's asking which face do you want to go. So you would go ahead and rotate this down to the bottom, click this, and as you can see, now the hole has gone ahead and been created. So let's just go ahead, isometric view, take a good look what's going on here, and there you have it. Now of course, because this is all driven by numbers now, we're going to go ahead, hit OK. You can go over to this pocket and you can see down here that it's gone through the whole thing. But more than that, it is this sketch that we want to take a look at. We can go in here, go to Constraints. You can see here are all our constraints that we could go ahead and change them. So instead we could change this constraint. Hey, I don't want this to be 10, I want this to only be 7. Hit enter and it changes the whole. Now that is still direct modeling, not parametric. It is technically parametric as well if you wanted to be pedantic about it. But that there is enough for this first video, and now we're going to go really quite deep into the sketcher in the next video. And there you have it. Yes, the video was a bit long, but I'm trying to condense this down to the smallest yet the most potent bunch of videos that I can. So hopefully within just another 2 more videos, you will already have all the knowledge that you need from this. A huge thank you to my patrons. You guys are absolutely awesome, and it really does mean so much to me to have your support. And if you're enjoying what I'm making here and you think I'm worthy of your support, I would love to see you there too. Don't forget that we have a Discord, and that is linked down in the description. Thank you for watching, keep making, and let the quest continue.